Hi, my name is Dwayne Gathers, and welcome to Civitas LA, featuring diverse and emerging leaders who make up this dynamic region and are creating community every day and building a better tomorrow. These bi-weekly conversations enable us to hear from, learn from, and be inspired by a new generation of civic entrepreneurs who are forging a path forward in making our region a stronger, more resilient, and connected group of citizens. Our goal is to elevate civic discourse, foster community connections, and promote civic knowledge and engagement across the greater Los Angeles region while elevating diverse and emerging voices in that conversation. Rabbi, UCLA teacher, and author David Wolpe writes in his book, Why Faith Matters. On balance, religion increases social stability, enabling people to live happier, more productive, and better lives. That does not demonstrate religion's truth. It does remind us, however, that we are creatures designed to flourish, to heal, and to help when we believe. As surveys point to declines in church membership, driven largely by those adults with no religious preference, and falling rates of church membership amongst those who do have a religion, I'm excited to be joined in studio this morning by two distinguished faith leaders from our Hollywood community. Reverend Kathy Cooper Ledesma, Senior Pastor of Hollywood United Methodist Church, and Rabbi Mari Chernow, Senior Rabbi of Temple Israel of Hollywood, as we prepare to celebrate the holiday season 2022, but also discuss the work of their respective organizations in nurturing our faith community and the role that they've played in the civic life of not only Hollywood, but our region. Reverend Kathy and Rabbi Mari, thank you for joining Civitas LA today.
It's great to be here.
Thanks so much for having us.
We appreciate you both so much. On Civitas LA, we'll do the easy part first, and that is we invite our guests to offer a brief self-introduction. Rabbi Mari, since you're to my left.
I am from Los Angeles. I lived in Phoenix for 18 years. I am delighted to be back. I love serving the Jewish people and beyond, and I'm married to Kara Thielman. We have 3 kids, Malila, Isabel, and Lillian.
Outstanding. Welcome. Reverend Kathy.
I'm Kathy Cooper Ledesma. I am the senior pastor of the Hollywood United Methodist Church, where I have served for 17 years. Prior to that, I served on the State Council of Churches staff, doing public policy work, and it's just a joy to be in ministry in Hollywood.
Outstanding. Thank you both so much. You know, before we dive into the conversation, we always appreciate getting to know our guests a little bit better through our lightning round. Usually this is the toughest part of the conversation, but this is a way for us to get to know you a little bit better through the things that you enjoy about our region, and also to be able to share for those around the world who listen to us some favorite LA hotspots. Are you ready for this?
You bet.
Reverend Kathy, give us a favorite restaurant or two.
Quarter Sheets in Echo Park.
That's a first. Okay.
And Mijares in Pasadena.
Outstanding. Rabbi Mari?
I'm a meat minimalist. I'm not a vegetarian or a vegan, but we've been blown away by the amount of vegan and vegetarian food. So we love Gracias Madre. We love Mas Veggies and something vegan. We order from those places all the time.
Outstanding. Give us a favorite place to take a sip, whether that's coffee, tea, vino. What's your favorite place to take a sip? Rabbi Mari?
I'm a coffee drinker, so at the moment I'm a Phil's addict, and I'm also always on the lookout for the perfect flat white.
Okay.
Any Starbucks would be great.
Starbucks, okay. Keeping it real. I like that. Give us a favorite place to take a visitor. Reverend Kathy.
The Old Farmers Market.
Okay, I love that.
That's
Rabbi
an
Mari?
excellent choice. I like taking people to Griffith Park, hike up to the observatory, catch the Hollywood sign.
Outstanding. We love Griffith Park. So that's going to preclude, well, maybe you have another response to this question then. Since we love our open space here in Southern California, give us a favorite hike or park.
I live a mile from Fryman Canyon, and the synagogue is 4 blocks from Runyon. So those are 2 places I am hiking as often as possible.
Well, we hear Runyon Canyon a lot, very social hike, a lot of Instagram moments there.
Yes.
Reverend Kathy, give us an outdoor spot.
Walking around the Rose Bowl.
Oh, outstanding. Yes, we've heard that a couple times too. You know, we're so grateful that we're moving beyond the pandemic and people are coming back together and to celebrate community. So give us a favorite community activity or event. Reverend Kathy.
The Rose Parade is wonderful.
Ah, yes.
I've enjoyed some wonderful concerts this summer. I always enjoy being out for music.
Okay. So are we saying, is the Bowl a favorite community place for you?
The Bowl and the Ford really had great experiences there. Yeah.
No, that's great. Well, we love it. We appreciate that. But given that this is, you know, a season of faith, and we're closing in on 2022, another year of the pandemic, not fully beyond us yet. Give us a favorite holiday, Reverend Kathy.
Oh, for me, it has to be Christmas.
Okay. Rabbi Murray?
Believe it or not, I love Yom Kippur, which is our fast day, our Day of Atonement, in many ways our most serious and difficult day of the year. But I love that we're all there all day long and engaged in deeply meaningful reflection and work.
Yeah, that's great. We love it. And, of course, we love Christmas at HUMC. So let's talk about, it's what's really fascinating for me to have you both here is that, you're both such longstanding institutions in our city and in a city that always tears things down and doesn't, revere its own history. So Reverend Kathy, founded in 1909 with a vision of being a sanctuary of hope, HUMC has been described as one of the most famous churches on the Pacific Coast with an atmosphere of reverence in the symbolic beauty and compelling stillness. Give us a short history of HUMC.
So the congregation actually had two other homes prior to its current location where it has been since 1939. The building is a Gothic revival, and when you walk into the sanctuary, you are immediately greeted with a sense of awe and reverence. There are probably more women in stained glass. I haven't done this research in the bill because there are pairs of individuals from the Hebrew scriptures and from the Christian scriptures on each side. And again, more women probably than most congregations will have in stained glass. But probably we are most well known for our red ribbons on our tower, which will next year celebrate 30 years of indicating to everyone that all people are welcome in God's house.
Yeah, excellent. And you've mentioned 17 years as senior pastor now. How did you find your way into the clergy?
Oh, you see, I was going to go to law school, and then God had other plans.
Well, I thought I was going to go to law school as well. I entered in law firms twice, and no, this is not for me. But go ahead.
Yeah, I spent a couple of years after college working for a group called Bread for the World, a Christian citizens movement against hunger. And I just decided that, the pull of God was stronger than the pull of law school. And so that's how I made my way to Claremont.
No, excellent. Rabbi Murray, founded in 1926 by 12 people. I did some reading.
Yes.
Temple Israel of Hollywood is a historic Reformed congregation in the heart of L.A. that serves as a vibrant hub of Jewish life. So share with us our short history of Temple Israel of Hollywood.
I'd say a couple of things that were really essential in its founding and its growth over the years. First of all, the connection to Hollywood. It was founded by Hollywood moguls. We maintain that as an important part of our identity. The commitment to social justice and to love of Israel in particular and love of serving our local community have both been instrumental, fundamental values in our community. And the other thing I'd say that has been the case early on is our love of school. So we have 3 thriving schools, an early childhood center, a day school, and a religious school. The place is bursting with kids, teeming with kids, and we really love doing Jewish education and helping families live their spiritual lives together. And so those 3 elements have been with us throughout and remain an important part of our identity.
Yeah, and you just you came into this role about a year or so ago, and you were over in Phoenix, I believe, for about 18 years.
Yeah.
But how did you get your start in clergy?
I went to the Hebrew Union College in Jerusalem and then here in Los Angeles. I was ordained in 2003. I did have 5 minutes of thinking about law school, but I was more inclined to become a therapist, and I will say that I tend to use my rabbinate very therapeutically. I talk a lot about the human experience and the emotions and the ways we learn to get along in the world, and I have found that it is very meaningful for me to do that same work, but in a community setting and in a religious setting.
That's great. Well, again, 1909 and 1926 respectively, but over the years, your organization has been really active participants in the civic life, not only of Hollywood, but of the city. And I remember this conversation with Lori Jean from the LA LGBT Center, who was really talking about the role that they've played as a convener of folks around big issues that are happening in our lives. So speak to the civic significance and the role that your organization have played on issues, whether international or national or regional, over these decades. Reverend Kathy?
So it's taken on a variety of forms over the years. I mean, we housed troops and sheltered them during World War II while they were waiting to be deployed overseas. We, for a time, had a cold weather shelter in our gym to help house folks who were experiencing homelessness. And then again, beginning in 1993, at the height of the AIDS pandemic, when anyone who was gay was being told they weren't welcome in everything from nail salons to schools to churches. We put the red ribbons up on the tower to say that, no, that's not who we are. And we have been involved in pretty much every aspect of the response to AIDS from the late 80s on.
Yeah, excellent. And Rabbi Mari?
Our progressive politics and our activism those have always been a major force in the community. A defining moment was in 1965 when MLK spoke at TIOH, and Max Nussbaum, a couple of senior rabbis ago, spoke at the Democratic National Convention. We have a great history of engagement and activism, and it's been a delight to come to this location and feel the strength of that. Not only being what people are interested in, but they see it directly as a obligation of their Jewish lives.
Yeah, no, excellent. I appreciate that. As I shared in the opening, thinking about the decline in church membership and what have you, two studies that I looked at. One was Gallup, which has been looking at this issue since I think 1937, and the other one was a Pew Research study on Jewish practices. Have talked about the increased secularization here in the United States. How are you viewing these trends, and how is it impacting your congregation and your work, and how you carry out that work, Rabbi Mari?
There's a great deal of concern in the Jewish community about declining commitment, declining membership, and so on. And while it is something to be concerned about, I also truly see it as an opportunity. We cannot assume that people are going to join a synagogue anymore. We cannot assume that they're going to want to engage in Jewish life in the ways that American Jews have for the last 50 to 100 years. So that means it's on us. We have to prove our relevance to people. We have to prove that we have some meaning to offer in their lives, in some ways that we're going to enhance their lives and deepen their lives. And I'm very excited by that possibility. I think I do believe we have something to offer. So I think we just need to maybe shift a little bit the ways we deliver it and let people know what liberal Judaism, in my case in particular, how it might improve their lives.
Yeah, indeed. Reverend Kathy, do you want to comment on your thoughts on these trends?
Sure. I mean, even before the pandemic hit, church membership and attendance was declining. The average was about 1.7 times per month. And during the pandemic, people fell out of the habit of being part of a community of faith, of going to church, because out of necessity, we were online, and we will remain online, especially for folks who cannot, for whatever reason, because of work or physical impairment, cannot actually physically come to church. But what we're now learning is that with only 1 in 3 return rate, essentially, to in-person worship, folks, especially younger folks, are looking for ways to worship with their hands and their feet, rather than sitting in a pew. So we're looking at opportunities for service on every single week to enable more folks to find their way back. Because we do believe that people need community.
Right.
But we've forgotten that during the pandemic because we've all been so isolated.
Right.
So part of the challenge then is for all of us who are in the faith community business to figure out ways to do that.
And you talked about reaching younger folks, and certainly these same surveys show that there's a generational divide with Gen Z and millennials and Gen X being unaffiliated and not showing up. How are you addressing this particular group of men and women, the younger generation? What initiatives do you have out there?
I think we need to meet them in different ways. I can't remember where I learned it recently, but I read or heard somebody say that the number of people who want to learn to chant Torah, right? So we read the Torah, we read the 5 books of Moses, and we do it in a melody, in a specific type of cantillation. And there was this increase in people wanting to learn how to chant Torah, how to do that online, right? So they weren't necessarily, we usually typically learn it in order to do it for the congregation on a Shabbat morning service or on a service. We don't have any reason to believe that the folks who are interested in that are going to lead a service by doing that. They just want to know. They just had this curiosity about the Jewish sounds of reading Torah. So how do we find those people? How do we meet them where they are? How do we, one of the things that we know is that walking into a synagogue feels so intimidating to some people, or so alienating to some people, or they assume they're going to be confronted with ideas about God that they don't hold, and ideas about religion and how you should be a human being. So we need to get out there and find them where they are, and I think put them at ease. That we're not preaching something. We're here to support each other and help us live our lives together. So there are different ways to maybe meet them there.
And certainly, Reverend Kathy, Hollywood United Methodist Church is, this imposing structure at Highland and Franklin, which everyone can see on their way to and from the Hollywood Bowl. How is the church going about engaging young people? And for both of you, certainly we see in Hollywood, we've got, lots of young folks coming into Hollywood, lots of renters. How are you attracting that crowd? How are we engaging that audience?
By not being afraid to do new things, first of all. For 25 years, we had a food pantry that we would give out lunches and clothing and books on Tuesdays. And most of the folks who kind of were volunteers in that were of probably an older generation. What we're finding now is when we're partnering with the Hollywood Food Coalition, or we're partnering with Food on Foot and actually going out and helping serve meals, we're getting a whole new younger group of people who want to be part of that. So that tells us that we're onto something, that we simply need to be more creative and expand our horizons as to how best we can serve God's people in new ways.
Well, certainly I know you've just had this visioning exercise, and I think there was a lot of feedback around folks wanting more community internally amongst each other, but then also want more engagement out in community. So what sort of initiatives and programs do you have, Rabbi Mari, around engaging folks internally amongst each other and growing community and outward into the Hollywood community or out into the city?
Sure. I think, internally to me, it really is about people's lived experience. I happen to believe, for example, that the best liturgy is still being written by all of us as we live our lives, right? We can all relate to the emotions that are found in the prayer book, the desires and the hopes and the despair and the, so on and so forth. So if we start by talking about the prayer book and telling people this is what you need to learn and this is what you need to do, I think we're learning that's not that effective. If we start by talking to people about, tell me the last time you felt lonely. Tell me the last time you wondered if you were doing right by your kid or right by your parents. And then we get to, there's actually a sentiment like that in the prayer book. Let's take a look at it. I think one of the leaders of the Reform movement, Amy Asen, calls that a life-to-text approach rather than a text-to-life approach.
Okay,
so I think starting with lived experience is really important.
And I know, Rabbi Mari, you've spoken about the importance of ecology. You say ecology as it relates to religious life, particularly in connecting Judaism to the alleviation of suffering of those in the environment. We've got a lot of suffering in our city, right amongst us here in Hollywood. So how does your organization, engage in the issues in Hollywood?
Well, I think there's a theory of education. I think it's called education in place that says that when you're teaching, one of the places to look for inspiration and for material is just the local environment. Just look around. So I lived in the desert for 18 years. What can we do in a place like that about water rights and about agriculture and about keeping people cool in 115-degree heat? Here, we're on Hollywood Boulevard. There is inequality and injustice that every single one of us notices when we drive to the building, when we step in the building. I think there is an unbelievable opportunity to be real actors in our immediate environment, in our local community, and again, to make that an integral part of our Jewish religious life.
And Reverend Kathy, similarly, you're at an iconic corner, so you see it all going by. How does HUMC engage in Hollywood, and particularly how has that engagement been altered, by the pandemic?
So we did, as I mentioned, we discontinued our food pantry because we had to, but it did force us into doing ministry in new ways. Again, partnering with other agencies that are doing it with a variety of other groups and faith communities so that we can have partnerships. I think that's going to be one of the key things going forward is to build partnerships with other agencies. I'm part of Hollywood Forward, the coalition that's committed to ending homelessness of service providers and faith communities and government officials. We're all part of that effort to try and say there should not be anyone living on the streets. There just should not be. And these are all God's children, and we need to figure out a way to help them. So creating those partnerships, I think, is one of the ways we can be most helpful.
And speak a little bit about Hollywood Forward. What is the work of the organization, and what are some of the initiatives that they have underway to address homelessness?
So Hollywood Forward has been around for 10 years or so as a coalition. It's just become organized, if you will, and structured during the pandemic. They hired their first executive director, Brittany Weissman, with whom I served on the LA County Mental Health Commission. So she's wonderful, and the goal is to really I can't remember the acronym, but it's 4 walls, a door, and a home.
Okay.
That's kind of what the Hollywood Forward acronym stands for. But it's designed to, again, bring together people to know where are the gaps in service that are being offered, who's doing what. And so yesterday, when I had a young woman come to me and said she was a victim of domestic violence, needed a place and needed help, I was able to reach out and say, what agency is doing this kind of work?
Okay.
Get an answer back immediately, and then help resolve that situation.
Okay. So it serves as a great clearinghouse for information.
Absolutely.
Access to resources. That's great. Reverend Mara, you touched on this, talking about the founding of TIOH being founded by moguls. So let's talk about, obviously, you're both in the heart of Hollywood, and we can't separate out Hollywood, the community, versus Hollywood, the industry. So speak to your organization's connection to the industry, and how do they support your work, or are they still showing up in the pews as well?
They are definitely still showing up in so many different ways, and it's been just a delight for me to get to know this community. I grew up in LA, but I really was not in this part of town. I really wasn't familiar with Hollywood, and the creativity and the energy and the truly incredible and inspiring things that people are doing is just wonderful. It's extraordinary. We have writers, directors, showrunners, and many people who are using their craft not only to entertain people but to do some good in the world.
Yeah, that's great.
It's been wonderful.
And Reverend Kathy, I don't know whether it's coming up or it's already happened by the time we release this episode, but you've got an event that harkens back to a film that was largely done, the Enchantment Under the Sea event. So yes. So talk about HUMC's engagement with this industry.
So we've been a location for films over the years. We've got folks who are mostly behind the camera, who've been part of the congregation over the course of many years. A couple in front of the camera as well. But we had, it was the 34th anniversary of a certain film that starred Michael J. Fox. And there was the Enchantment Under the Sea dance that was actually held and filmed in our gymnasium. Yeah. So we recreated that experience last month, and it was wildly successful. So we have a really good support system with folks who are in the industry who are supportive of the mission and ministry of the church.
No, that's great, and I'm not gonna ask either of you for any celebrity sightings in your respective organizations. It's great to have you both in, because I know we always talk on Civitas LA about collaboration and partnerships, and we always want our listeners to find out how they can get involved in the work that you're doing. So speak to your own collaboration as organizations addressing issues in Hollywood. I believe you've got an exciting event that's been taking place for about 3 decades, plus or minus. Rabbi Mari, share some thoughts.
Sure. I'll say a word about the Christmas dinner, which we have indeed been a part of, and it's a very proud element in our history. It started in 1985, and it was held, I believe, in a building that soon after that was burned down or destroyed, and immediately we went to Hollywood United Methodist Church to see if we could host it in their space. And we spend months collecting items that we're going to give out and gathering food and gathering literally hundreds of volunteers. The day before Christmas, on the 24th, we are so happy to be welcomed to HUMC, and we spend the whole day preparing and sorting and organizing hygiene kits and toys for kids and where the food line's going to go and so on and so forth. And then for several hours on Christmas Day, on the 25th, we serve what we expect will be about 800 folks a meal where they can sit down and enjoy a hot meal and celebrate the holiday. And we work very hard to make sure that everybody can step in with dignity and feel honored and appreciated, and like we like to give them a few hours even of a real holiday, and it's an extraordinary thing. I saw it happen myself for the first time last year in pouring rain, but it was still a tremendous event, and we're looking forward to this year's.
Yeah. So, Reverend Kathy, how can folks get involved in this year's Christmas dinner?
So they can go to tioh.org to sign up. There'll be a link there. They can come ahead of time, and if they want to drop off any kind of toys at the church, they can come during business hours or on Sundays especially. We'd be glad to have those and collect those for Temple Israel. It's a marvelous day. The times that I have gone, the joy that you see on the children's face when they get to climb in Santa's lap and take a picture, it's as though they are in their own homes and being able to really, truly experience the joy of Christmas. So it's just been a marvelous partnership over these years.
And, I know you're involved in a lot of organizations. Speak to the work of multiple organizations in Hollywood here that you're working with, whether it's TIOH or other faith organizations on issues. How do you engage with other faith denominations on issues of importance to Hollywood or to the city or to our state or region?
We haven't really had a very active interfaith group for a while. They have been sporadic attempts to organize ones, and mostly it's been individual partnerships like we've had with TIOH over the years. The fire department sometimes will gather us together. The LAPD tried to gather some clergy together in September just to have an emergency response kind of team. But because Los Angeles is so diverse and so dispersed, if you will, it's not had that same kind of interfaith presence that a lot of other communities have.
The main way,
what was your experience in Phoenix, for example?
it's interesting. My experience in Phoenix was very similar to what Reverend Kathy is describing, that we would partner with particular churches or a mosque on particular events, which is very, very meaningful and important in one way, and it really helps us get to know our neighbors. The way we've been primarily involved in interfaith work here has been through LA Voice, the community organizing organization for different faith traditions, and that we've just been a part of a listening campaign in which we went out to our community members and said what's most important to us, and they did it citywide, and that has helped us as a large group direct our efforts in terms of social justice and activism in the city. Certainly, the housing problem in Los Angeles is very, very high on everybody's mind, and LA Voice convenes us together so that we can all amplify our voices. One of the most powerful parts of being involved is not only that amplified voice, but really hearing people's stories. Storytelling is a big part of what they do and what they organize. And so we sometimes in the Jewish community in Hollywood can be a little bit homogenous. So it's really important for us to hear voices of other Angelinos who care about the same things and are experiencing it in very, very different ways. I think that really helps us feel motivated.
No, that's great. Thinking about getting involved, share with us some opportunities for engagement with your organizations in the coming year. What are some key milestones, some key events taking place over the next year in your organizations, and how do people find you and get involved? Reverend Kathy?
So 2023 is going to be, for us, the year of the Red Ribbons, the 30th anniversary. We've received a grant from the National Trust for Historic Preservation to both repaint them on the tower, as well as to create a documentary about their history, because most of the folks who helped put them up 30 years ago are now in their 8th decade of life. So we've... or 8th or 9th. So we've gotten that, and that will be debuting next year. We're looking to both increase our outreach, again, with homeless folks and partnering with other agencies. And we're also, based on our survey that you referenced earlier, we're looking internally to offering, probably via Zoom, but sometimes in person too, classes, workshops, seminars on how to overcome anxiety, because that has been something that's been, I think, universal during this pandemic, both within the faith community and without. So those opportunities can all be found on our website, hollywoodumc.org.
Excellent. Rabbi Mari?
In addition to joining us for the Christmas dinner, we are involved in weekly phone banking. Certainly, there was a lot of activity around the election that we just experienced, and we will continue that work on issues that matter to us. We also have a weekly lunch project in which we put together lunches that we deliver locally. We have an event around climate change with our partners, the Religious Action Center, which is the Reform Movement's organizing and lobbying body. That's in late January. And another initiative that we're taking, two other initiatives I'll mention briefly. One is we're talking a lot about democracy. What creates a healthy democracy, how we have conversations in which we disagree, and how it is a religious obligation to participate in democracy. The other thing that we are deepening is the involvement in our schools of our social justice projects. So there are ways to make sure that we're having those conversations throughout the life cycle, throughout anybody's experience, and getting our kids involved.
And for the audience, just share where to find you.
You can write to me anytime at rmari@tioh.org, rmari@tioh.org. Call the synagogue, and we'll be delighted to hear from you.
Excellent. Well, as we release this episode in the holiday season 2022, it's a time of joy, but it's also a time of just depression for many folks. So as the Chanukah season and Christmas holidays begin, what are you most looking forward to, and what is your message to our listeners for this holiday season? Rabbi Mari.
Hanukkah is largely celebrated at home. We will certainly celebrate it in many ways together at the synagogue, but the image that I get is a family looking around at their menorahs, their Chanukiot lit, and just sitting around and watching the candles burn and having a beautiful moment together. So we look forward to sharing that light and warmth with our community.
And Reverend Kathy, what are you most looking forward to this holiday season, and what are your messages to our listeners?
So I think two things. First, on December the 11th, our children will return to their pageant.
Yes.
And it's an original pageant by our director of Children and Family Ministries, who does a wonderful job, and I can't wait to see the kids again because it's been 3 years. And then we will return to our 2 candlelight services on Christmas Eve at 5 and 10:30, which are both just simply joyous. And then for those who are having a difficult time, we will be having on Zoom a Blue Christmas on the 17th, Blue Christmas service on the 17th, to help folks for whom this is a difficult season.
Yeah, indeed. So as we wind down, I want to return to where we began, and that was David Wolpe's statement in Why Faith Matters. Again, stating, on balance, religion increases social stability, enabling people to live happier, more productive, and better lives. That does not demonstrate religion's truth. It does remind us, however, that we are creatures designed to flourish, to heal, and to help when we believe. So what are your thoughts on this statement, and or how would you rephrase that in your own words with regard to why faith matters? Rabbi Mari?
I often say that almost every sermon I write could be titled, Life is Incredibly Difficult and Wildly Beautiful. And I think every person I know is trying to get through both elements of that experience. It can be gut-wrenching, heartbreaking at times, and it can also contain more beauty than we can hold, more beauty than we can express. I want us to experience both of those poles and everything in between together.
Yeah, excellent. Reverend Kathy, what are your thoughts on this statement, and or how would you rephrase that in your own words?
Jesus gathered us together in community. He gathered 12 disciples, and clearly there were others who went with them in their travels. We need community. We need one another. And I think the expression of compassion and service and mercy and grace can all be expressed best within the context of community. And that's what we seek to foster at Hollywood United Methodist Church.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you for that. So as we say on Civitas LA, the guest always gets the last word. So usually we ask for our guest to offer any concluding thoughts or any calls to action. But however, as we go into this holiday season, we also invite you to offer a closing prayer for this episode, if you so choose. Rabbi Mari?
I'll just say again that for the Jewish people, Hanukkah, we could have another conversation sometime about its religious significance, but Hanukkah has come to be a time of light and warmth and love. So my prayer is that all of us experience increasing light, increasing warmth, increasing love.
Outstanding. Reverend Kathy, the final word or closing prayer?
To quote Isaiah, the people who walked in darkness have seen a great light. So we look to the light of the Christ child for our inspiration, our hope in the coming year.
That's outstanding. Thank you both so much. Reverend Kathy, Rabbi Mari, thank you for joining me this morning in studio. This has been a great dialogue, and I appreciate your time, your service to community, and we look forward to having you back on to discuss the progress that you're making. And certainly for those who want to get involved in this Christmas dinner, that's a partnership between HUMC and Temple Israel of Hollywood. You can reach out to Rabbi Mari at www.tioh.org. And as always, to our audience, thank you for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed this program, and we look forward to returning in January as we continue our great civic conversations with those who are working to create, build, and serve community across our dynamic region. As we move into this holiday season 2022, we extend our best wishes for a very happy Hanukkah and a very, very Merry Christmas. Until we meet again, stay strong and get involved. To learn more about Civitas LA and share feedback on this program, or if you have a recommendation about future programs, please visit our website at www.civitasla.com. And connect with us on Facebook at Civitas LA, Instagram at Civitas_LA, and Twitter at Civitas_LA.